Hello and welcome back to another episode of the Physiology of Endurance Running podcast. I'm Dan, joined as ever by Owain. Owain, how you doing?
Yeah, good. Yeah. How are you?
Yeah, not bad. How your legs doing post mountain race, post Snowdon?
Yeah, they weren't great for a few days, but no, they're doing all right now. Yeah, legs are
Good.
fine. Ego's a bit hurt,
Yeah,
but
yeah. We move on. We move on.
yeah,
Yeah,
next
yeah.
race.
No, I'm doing all right. Putting some big miles in. Starting to feel the big miles. Keep telling myself I'm going to have a down week and then have another big week of training. I've got Jake Smith putting me through my paces. Uh,
Yeah, your new
New
training
training
partner.
partner, just about keeping my lactates mostly in the right place. But yeah, it's been fun. But yeah, today we're very lucky to have been joined by Kris Jones, or actually Dr. Kris Jones. He got a PhD in biomechanics and works in golf. Really interesting area. So definitely, yeah, undergraduate degree in sports science, and really has got a good grounding in an evidence based approach to training, and yeah, super knowledgeable. But one of the reasons that I wanted to get Kris on is that he's had, I would say, like four different careers in running, and that he started out as an orienteer, GB vests in orienteering, then moved into more just straight running, GB vests for cross country, track, roads, and most recently has transitioned to the mountains and is again getting GB vests there, going to the OCC events and came sixth last year was it? Uh,
Yeah,
hoping for a podium position again this summer, uh, and yeah, it's really good conversation chatting about his training approach, his philosophy, and how that's changed over time. And I think it also just he's obviously got some talent, but you wouldn't have necessarily picked him to go as far as he has done, I would say, based upon looking at, you go back on his power of 10, like he's running like 16-minute 5Ks at the start of his career as a teenager, which is a very respectable time, but running PBs of, I'm going to go through all of them because they're pretty impressive range here. 803 for 3K, 1345 for 5K, 1823 for 10K, 6305 for a half, and then a one go at a marathon in 217. So good range, very good athlete in his own right, and has channeled that into many different disciplines. So really good chat, and I definitely enjoyed our interview with him.
yeah, really good chat. I think also another, I guess, nice, unique, interesting thing about Chris is he puts all of his training on Instagram. There's just a weekly post of his training and some of his thoughts, which is pretty cool to see. It gives you an idea of what someone at the front of OCC is doing, but also like their thoughts behind it as well, which is, yeah, it's nice to see. I think he talks about sort of there being some context, especially with some of the mountain training. Mentioned seeing like 20-hour weeks, but actually a lot of that might be hiking. Um, but yeah, he's putting that all out there every week. So a really good follow on Instagram as well if you're just interested in seeing sort of what he does. If you listen to this and think, oh, I want to see what he does the rest of the year, yeah, check him out on Insta. Um, but yeah, no, good chat. Really
Yeah,
enjoyed.
super nice guy as well.
Um,
Super nice guy.
yeah,
Proper, yeah, Swansea, good Swansea guy. Despite living in Scotland now, he's kept his accent. He's done well.
so as always, we're sponsored by Saw. I guess keeping with the trail theme, Saw has a collab with Ultra, the zero drop shoe brand, which I think we said last time looks really cool. Yeah, really nicely fashioned gear. Like the colorways are cool, and it's more of the trail kit where it's designed to work together. Um, Chris talks a bit actually about weighing his gear. I reckon if you weighed all of the saw gear that you'd need for a trail race, it would be really lightweight and it would look really good as well.
I mean, like just
Um,
the vests are insane. Like I'm
yeah,
like the weight is like 30 grams or something. Like compared to, not to diss Ron Hill, classic Ron Hill vests, but like I mean, but it's just a different league. And then you soak it in water or sweat, and the weight difference is even bigger. It's huge.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah, yeah, and yeah, like we said, yeah, Chris talked about weighing his kit, and yeah, like if you're, you're not just wearing a vest for one of these ultras, you're wearing a pack, and you've got mandatory gear, which Saw makes most, if not all of, for all of these trail and mountain races. So yeah, definitely check them out. I think you'd also probably be one of the best looking runners on the mountain if you're head to toe and sore.
uh,
Um, yeah, no, there was someone head to toe and sore at Snowdon Mountain Race, and I did think like, yeah, your kit looks really good. as he flew past me the other way whilst I was dying a death on the way
yeah,
up.
yeah. I bet you get
Yeah, but
judged
no,
though if you turn up all sore on your local fell races.
I think you've got to back it up.
Yeah, you
Yeah,
gotta
you've really
you
got
gotta
to back it
match it
up.
with good performance. Nah.
Yeah, but yeah, check out Saw as always. Thank you as always for them for yeah, helping us make this podcast happen. And yeah, I guess we'll leave you with the interview. So yeah, enjoy and catch you next time.
So we're very lucky today to be joined by Kris Jones, the very versatile Kris Jones, GB vests across orienteering, cross country, track, and mountains. So Kris, thanks for joining us today. How are you doing?
Yeah, thanks. It's nice to be on. It's I am a listener, so it's a bit surreal to hear you guys live rather than on my commute or on a run sometime. But yeah, hopefully it'll be a good chat and looking forward to it.
Good, good. I've been looking forward to this one for a while, and it's been penciled in for a while, but finally got it, got a date in my diary, which is great. So, I we were saying before we started recording, you started out as an orienteer. How did that come about? How did you get into orienteering? Tell us about that. Your starting
Yeah.
point place.
So yeah, my first entry into kind of running or really sport was orienteering. I played a few different sports growing up. I went along to like a tennis club or a football in the evening and swimming and stuff like that. But um, when I was about 11 or 12, my dad started to get back into orienteering. It was something he did when he was younger, and um, he kind of took us all along. So went along as a family to some Swansea Bay orienteering events, and yeah, initially it was him dragging us down there, and we all went as a family and all did different courses, and then as my brother initially, who's a couple of years older, got into the Welsh junior squad, and so went along to stuff like that, and it sort of migrated from him dragging us along to us dragging him along. And so, yeah, orienteering was my kind of first real sport I was any good at. It was kind of my main sport probably from, yeah, early teens to mid 20s for sure. And yeah, it's a great sport. It's something, as I say, all the family can do, but it's yeah, it's a hard one to get into because it's hard to start with.
It's a quite close knit community, from what I understand. Like
Yeah,
there's not hundreds of you, but everybody does every event. Is that a
yeah,
honest reflection?
yeah. I mean, there's a lot of. I mean, like in any hobby or any sport, like a lot of people are very keen on it, and it's a lot of people. It's their passion and their sport, and it certainly was for me for many years, and it's really how I got into running in general. I got into running really to try and be a better orienteer. That's the main reason I started going to kind of school cross countries and then to Swansea Harriers, was to kind of, yeah, try and be fitter for like orienteering races.
Yeah, and was it an orienteering club you were part of? I'm guessing in Swansea.
Yeah, so Swansea Bay Orienteers was my kind of um, club growing up, and yeah, they do a great summer series kind of throughout the summer, little local events with 30 to 50 people, and a few courses, and every Wednesday it was, yeah, it's part of the calendar really.
Yeah, and you soon realised you're pretty good at it.
Yeah, I mean, it's not a huge sport, so a lot of kind of youngsters growing up, especially in Wales, there's not a huge amount of people doing it. So quite soon you'd get into like the Welsh junior squad, and they'd have training weekends, and you'd go along and you'd, do a couple of days of training, but you'd meet, I met a lot of really good friends, and then you kind of, it makes you want to go back, and so I've got a huge amount of good memories from kind of going along to Welsh squad trainings, and then I say I was initially not that great, but quite keen, and I got pretty good pretty quickly, and kind of really enjoyed it, and just kind of progressed through there from Welsh junior squad to various kind of GB things as a junior, and then carried it on through kind of university in my early 20s.
Yeah, and we've heard a bit about orienteering from Owain, who's a budding orienteer. Is that fair?
Yeah. I don't know what the right word is. And like when I orienteer, I'm a bit like bull in a china shop sort of thing. Like just run full speed and sort of hope you find the control. Which I think is maybe how everyone starts, right?
So I actually started off. I was quite good at the navigation to start with, and then as I got older, and certainly in my kind of mid-20s, I went through this period where I was getting faster, and my orienteering wasn't keeping up. So I went from being quite a good technical orienteer to being much more of a fast runner who was prone to making these bigger mistakes, because obviously the faster you run, the harder it is to navigate.
Yeah. And I think I've mentioned it on here, but you may be just able to sort of give a brief explanation of like what orienteering is for someone that's just a runner, because I think there's some pollination of orienteers go to running because they have to, right?
Yeah.
And there's not orienteering events that often, but there's not much sort of in the other direction. Maybe there's not many runners that then go to orienteering. Maybe.
Yeah. Well, so the basics of orienteering is it's a race. You get your map at the start line with a course on, and you navigate the course. So the course will be a series of checkpoints. You navigate the course, and the fastest time wins. Normally it's done as a kind of interval start, like a time trial, so you're not all following each other. But it happens in cities, parks, hillsides, forests, kind of any kind of terrain you can think of, you can orienteer there, and it's it's essentially it's a race, but instead of a cross country race, but instead of having the course marked out, you have to navigate yourself through a series of checkpoints.
You have to use your brain whilst you're also running sort of as hard as possible, which is quite an interesting challenge, isn't it?
Yes, and it varies from, I mean, you could go up to like your mountain marathon type orienteering events, which are, incredibly long mountains, quite kind of, long distance races, all the way back down to, I did a lot of sprint orienteering in my career. That's maybe kind of 10 to 15 minutes, very short and fast, quite simple navigation, but nothing simple when you're trying to run as fast as you can. You're running 5k effort and trying to navigate. It's very short and sharp and intense racing.
I don't think people typically think about when they think of volunteering. They don't think of events lasting 12, 15 minutes. Are you when you were competing in the sprint events, were you consciously trying to hold yourself back, thinking that if I push this too hard, I'm not going to be able to navigate? Or actually, is it you get to a point where you can just run as hard as you can?
Yeah, you find out this balance. Normally you are pretty close to the line, but it's as I've experienced a number of times, it's a very kind of fine line to tread, and these championships can be decided on seconds. So it's you're trying to run as fast as you can, but it's, I say, holding that 0.5% back so that you can have enough oxygen to actually navigate the course.
I was going to say, I quite often just tell people just watch sort of like 5 minutes of a sprint orienteering race on YouTube, because like it's, you know, like you say, you are running. It's a, you know, I think it's 5 or 6 people at a time,
Yeah.
um, and you're running, you know, full speed. You're running 5k pace, 5k effort, and navigating, and then the coverage is really good as well because there's cameras placed around the course. There's sometimes drones, and then there's a map showing where you all are on the course. And you just have, you know, 5 or 6 guys just flying around this corner, and there's the control, and then there's a decision about what way do you take to the next control, and it's over in a few minutes, and it's actually a really
Yeah.
really like exciting sort of event to watch as well.
Yeah, it's the coverage has certainly in my career come on hugely. Yeah, some of the coverage in the some more recent world champs is fantastic. I'd probably, well, I'd maybe suggest people avoid the certain championships because there's a few that I've made some embarrassing mistakes at. But if you want to go back and watch those, well, yeah.
So what's the format of a championship? Is it like heats and semis, finals, or is it just straight final?
Yeah, so in the orienteering world championships, it alternates between forest disciplines and sprint disciplines. So the forest world champs has just gone, and it was in Finland. And there's a middle distance, which is about 35 minutes, and is quite forest terrain normally, and quite technical, quite difficult navigation. Then there's a long distance, which is maybe something like an hour and a half for the winner, and that's much more about route choice and kind of bigger decisions. And then there's a relay, which is men's and women's, 3 legs each, and normally about 30 to 35 minutes as well. And then, so on alternate years, there's a sprint world championships, and that's an individual sprint, which is time trial, kind of around 15 minutes. A knockout sprint, which is rounds, which is probably what Owain's seen, where you go off in rounds of kind of 6 guys or 6 women, and I think in the quarterfinals it's first 3 across the line, and then the semi-finals it's first 2 across the line get into the next round, and then there's also a sprint relay, which is kind of mixed relay, so it goes woman, man, man, woman, and that's about 4 15-minute legs as well. And if you want to go watch a race, go watch the 2022 sprint relay in Denmark, because that's where we got a silver medal. So that's quite a fun memory.
Yeah, I'll go check that out. So your peak orienteering career, probably, what is it, mid-20s? Is that what, early 20s?
Yeah.
What would training look like in that period?
I mean, yeah, it kind of developed over time. So I was maybe fortunate that I was an orienteer, because I started off training with mostly orienteers and getting all my training knowledge from orienteers, and I trained okay, but I went to Loughborough for my masters in 2015, and trained with kind of Loughborough Athletics, George Gandy at the time, and I did have this kind of realization that, actually there's, I'm training okay, but there's so many levels above what I'm doing, and it's quite kind of motivating to go, I can keep progressing here, keep kind of training better. And so, yeah, I mean, from there, I kind of was exposed a lot more to kind of running. So I say I kind of trained much like a 5k, 10k runner. So, 2 sessions a week, a long run, and mileage in between. And one thing I was quite proud of, so I've got training logs back to about 2008, and from 2008 to 2015, 2016, there's this really nice gradual progression in training hours and kind of structure. And then and each year I was just getting better and better. So it's as I learned, I was training at the right level all the time, because I'd train a little bit better, I'd take the next logical step, and then each year I'd improve a little. And then I say 2016, 2017, 2018, I started to get to a level where I was, I was training pretty well, and then improvements come much harder then.
Yeah, yeah, you have to do a lot more work to get just a
Yeah,
tiny bit better. But
yeah.
you, so you, at what point did you transition to more of a running focus? Were you obviously doing running events alongside the orienteering?
Yes.
Yeah, how did that evolution occur?
So I'd always done like some running alongside orienteering because there's not huge amounts of races, all through the year. And I always, I joined Swansea Harriers when I was kind of 14 maybe, and always ran the kind of 5Ks on the seafront in the summer and things like that. And um, I did a little bit of fell running in university, joined Dark Peak in Sheffield. It did you know, always been a member of Swansea Harriers. So I've done the road relays quite a few times, but it was really that kind of 2016, 2017 where I started to have goals in running as well. And so part of it was 2016, I think, in Leeds Abbey Dash, I ran 10K, and I think my PB at the time was like 31 something, because as an orienteer, I'd raced a few 10Ks, but you don't often peak for them. You're not in the best shape, and um, you're not necessarily, it's not your focus. I raced Leeds Abbey Dash, and I think I ran like 29:30 something. So I took like 2 minutes off my PB.
Pre super
Um,
shoes.
Pre super shoes, yeah.
It's an
And then I was
important
like, oh,
caveat. That it's an important caveat.
yeah, yeah. But I was like, oh wow, that's quite good. And then at the time, the B standard for the Commonwealth Games for Wales was 28:50, and so I thought, oh, and it was going into 2017 where you had to set a standard. So I thought, oh well, I mean, I've just improved 2 minutes. What, another 40 seconds?
Yeah,
Yeah,
easy, easy.
might as well have a crack at that. And I didn't get the Commonwealth standard, but I did. I ran 29:05 a high gate and got my first GB vest from British Athletics. So I went to the 10,000 meter Euro Cup in Belarus a few weeks later. So that was kind of the transition point of me go. It was almost like light bulb moment of like, oh wow, if I have a go at some of this stuff, it might be,
Hmm.
I might be pretty good.
And by this point, were you still orienteering?
Yeah. So I ran World Champs in ran World Champs 2013 through to 2018 every year. Actually ran in the forest in 2016 in the relay. I can't remember if I ran. I think I ran. I don't think I ran in the forest in 2017, but then I ran in the forest again in the relay in 2018. I think. So still, yeah, that was my main focus, was the orienteering. It was just kind of like this side quest of, I could now do both, um, which is quite a fun kind of realization.
So I guess you by being able to do both, you developed your orienteering like skills to a level where it was more fitness. Would you say, or was it,
Yeah,
or do you think they complemented each other, trying to do both, or did it take away from your orienteering?
I think they do complement each other, and because orienteering it's a race at the end of the day, and being faster is not going to be an issue. Um, I did say earlier, I kind of started off, I was very technically good. Um, as I kind of went through the years, my kind of hours of orienteering went down and down, and my hours of running and overall training went up. Um, so I kind of, I was became a better runner maybe than I was technical orienteer by the end. But in my second World Champs, it was actually in Venice. One of the kind of really cool things that I've got to do in my running career was do a sprint World Champs around Venice. You imagine the kind of labyrinth of alleyways and bridges and canals. It was just fantastic. But there was one of my competitors there was a Belgian guy, Yannick Michels, who is similar age to me, and in the run up to the World Champs, he ran something like 13:50 for 5k, and at this point, I think my 5k PB was like 15:20 something, and so I'm there doing the maths in my head in the run up to this World Champs, going, well, on the start line, I'm giving away well over a minute to this guy. Like, even if he's not very good technically, there's no way I can beat him. And so I kind of realized I need to get better at running, and yeah, as I got better at running, my results did improve in orienteering. Towards the end, probably the balance went a little bit too far the other way, and I was trying to compete internationally with actually relatively few orienteering hours, so my technique was a bit hit or miss at times. But yeah, it's kind of, you can't train orienteering all year round, because there's only so many kind of orienteering maps which are kind of a special kind of specially made for orienteering, and you'll know if you kind of go down to your local park, if you know it, the navigation's not that hard. So instead of looking at the map and saying, oh well, how am I going to navigate this leg? You start looking at the map and going, oh, it's over by the fountain, by the front gate, and you're not actually orienteering. So I say you need to. It's one of the frustrations that I had in latter years, is that it becomes quite hard to train for, because you need this like novelty. Doing orienteering somewhere becomes quite easy quite quickly. Yeah.
That's why Owain loves his ones around Cardiff, you see, because he's lived there so long. He knows he knows all the parks back to front.
Yeah.
There's definitely some local knowledge. If you know that shortcut, then that definitely helps.
Yeah. And there's things you do in training, like you kind of alter the maps and you add kind of impassable areas, and you make it more difficult, but there's only so much that kind of there's only so much that helps, and you just have to. A lot of like kind of the very best orienteers spend a lot of time on training camp, because you travel somewhere and there's new maps and there's new terrain, so
yeah
it becomes quite hard then when you've got a full-time job.
So you mentioned sort of knowing one of your competitors sort of 5k times. Is that sort of I guess a common thing in orienteering? Like, have people become more aware, like, oh, this guy's run this guy's run that, but I'm a better navigator than him? Like, are you able to sort of determine the balance, or not?
It's a bit of a mix. At the top level, there's some guys that do run as well, and compete on the road or the track, and often they're very good. But there's also these kind of orienteers that just they're Scandinavian often, and they just run in the forest, and on paper their track times are nothing, but in the back of my mind, they're still incredibly fit athletes. Just knowing knowing the level they have to be, and it's these people that do a bit of both, kind of expose that level. So I mean, there's a Swiss guy, Matthias Kibbert, who again is similar age to me, but he ran for Switzerland at the Olympics in the marathon. So and I think he won a medal. I don't think he won the long distance just gone. I think he was third in the long distance.
Oh, I remember seeing some in the news, or somewhere on social media. Yeah, everyone making this fuss about an orienteer making a marathon.
Yeah. So he's a 2:08 marathoner, but when he came back to the long distance in the World Orienteering Champs this year, he still didn't win, which is just crazy to me, because 2:08 for the marathon is so fast.
Yeah, but
Yeah,
you continue to get faster as well. Like you got your 10K time down to 28:23. Looking at your para 10 here,
yeah,
I
yeah,
imagine that was a bit frustrating. In that, from memory, you made the early Commonwealth Games qualifying
yeah.
time, but didn't get picked, unfortunately.
Yeah, yeah, it was very frustrating. One of the kind of I'm never going to be able to look back at that time and kind of without a bit of frustration, because it was just I built up this goal kind of in my head, and as I said earlier, it was kind of the carrot of Commonwealth Games that kind of was one of these light bulb moments that got me to have a go at a lot more running events. Um, and so 4 years later, when Commonwealth Games came back around, I was like, right, okay, I know a lot more about what I'm doing now. I'm going to really go after this standard, which had obviously improved. So it was 28:30 this time. Um, and honestly, I never really thought I'd get it. 28:30 just sounds incredibly fast. It's like 68 seconds a lap, I think, or something. It's
It's very fast. Yeah,
and I thought, well, I might not get it, but I'll give it a good go. And even if I fall a bit short again, I might run 28:40 or something. I still run very fast. Um, so I ran two races in what would it be 21, which was coming out of COVID. So it was like at least the first of these races was a kind of I think it was 8 people on a track in Newport. Um, and I ran 28:33 and 28:23. So I was like, wow, that was, you know, beyond my kind of wildest expectations to actually hit the time. Um, so then it's you build it up in your head and you think, if I run this time, I'm not on the plane because it was in Birmingham, but I'm in that team. And, I grew up, um, for me, I don't know if it's the same with you guys, but being Welsh, the Commonwealth Games is massive. It's the highest kind of event where you can run for Wales. Um, and so yeah, it's frustrating not to be selected, but um, yeah, these
yeah,
things happen.
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. Unfortunately, there's always questionable selection standards, and especially when it's just up the road in Birmingham, basically home games. But I guess you did make multiple European cross teams. Is that right? You've
yeah,
made European cross
yeah.
at least once. How many?
Twice Eurocross,
Twice.
and actually, it's one of the things I was quite proud of. Is both times I actually scored for the team. I was, I think, the third British guy across the line in both Eurocrosses I did.
Yeah, some team medals.
Team medals, which is always
Yeah,
good. And I say in teams with some very kind of fast runners, it's kind of um, yeah, it's quite a cool opportunity because the cross is a bit of a leveler, and then you get to be in teams with like Dewi and Mark Scott and all these kind of Nick Gulab at the time just
yeah,
set the British 5K record, and you sort of like, wow, these guys are yeah
yeah. And you're part of it. Yeah, and
yeah
scoring.
exactly
That's
yeah
the dream, isn't it? To
so
come in and yeah,
yeah.
and but also world half marathon champs. Your para 10 is it's amazing. It's just so
Yeah,
diverse. So it's just
yeah.
hitting all these
I
different
was thinking
disciplines.
your last athlete episode was Alistair Brownlee, who's obviously like one of the superstars. I'm more of like your journeyman kind of your journeyman midfielder who kind of does a lot but never really kind of is a star. It's been quite fun though. It's just it's always been a challenge, and that's what I like about running as a sport is it's setting out and trying to do something that you kind of don't know if you're going to be able to do, whether it's making a team or running a time or just kind of yeah any kind of race environment. You don't know what the outcome's going to be, and I just love that kind of challenge of trying to work out that puzzle. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, like you've got a PhD in biomechanics, and obviously you've got that scientific brain and approach to training. You've coached yourself for the majority of your career, is my understanding. Is that right?
Yeah, most of my career, in the couple of years prior to 21, so when I was going for the Commonwealth Games stand in the 10K, I was coached by Kris Jones, which is Kris Jones Welsh Athletics, not Kris Jones myself.
Yeah.
So it was a very soft transition from self coaching. And I'm now coached by a guy, Doug Stewart, through what's called the Elite Trail Team. So it's kind of a group, a support team. It kind of molded after kind of your Tour de France support team. So there's a nutritionist involved, a sleep specialist, a psychologist, coaching, all these kind of things, just to try and. I say the nice thing about it is being able to talk to people who are smarter than me and kind of understand that I don't have all the answers. I still set a lot of my training, but then I've got someone to run an eye over it and make sure I'm sticking to what I say I'm going to do, or not biting off too much, and all these kind of things that could be a problem if you are coaching yourself, and I certainly ran into at times over the years. But
yeah. So I guess that brings us nicely into this latest chapter of your career, which is coming off the track and roads and away from the orienteering and onto the mountains. Like what sparked that?
Funnily enough, the Commonwealth Games, so in 22, I had this summer where I just kind of not been selected for the Commonwealth Games. I went to the World Orienteering Champs, and it was a kind of really up and down week. So we started off, we won the silver medal in the relay, which, considering I ran my first World Champs in 2013, it took me 9 years to get a medal. I had a number of fourth places in that period, which was quite frustrating. So getting a medal was pretty spectacular feeling, and doing it with a team was amazing. Then in the knockout sprint, I made it through to the final, and then I completely just messed up at the start of the final. So I came sixth, but it's kind of this bittersweet because I was never in contention. I made a mistake very early on. And it's one of the easiest sixth places you're ever going to get because you've made it through to the final. Mm-hmm. You make a mistake early on and you can jog the rest. I mean, the worst you're going to get is sixth. But that's frustrating. And then in the individual sprint, I had a pretty okay run, like pretty good, but I came in third. So I celebrated, fantastic, won a medal, and then downloaded my timing chip, and I'd missed one of the controls. So I had this like really up and down summer where like some of it was fantastic, but then I had these big kind of kick in the teeth moments where, not getting selected, that kind of bronze medal that was mine for, 2 minutes. And then I was training, but I was like training out of frustration. And my plan initially was to go and try and run some fast 5Ks at the end of summer. But I just realized I was like not in the headspace to do that. I was like, I'm going to turn up to this track. I'm just going to be running on anger. And whatever happens, it's going to be like this wholly frustrating experience. And so my wife was doing this trail race in the Lake District, so the Scafell Trail Marathon. It was like 40 trail races. They'll call themselves marathons, but it was like 45K or something. So near enough. And I entered. I just thought it's in 6 weeks' time. I'm pretty fit. Like I'm just going to enter it and kind of go down and run it as a kind of bit of fun. And then about a week after I entered, I realised it was the trial for the World Trail and Mountain Running Champs. So I entered, and then I had this week of like not thinking about it. And then I saw something and it was like, that race is the trial for the champs in Thailand, for the short trail distance. And so all of a sudden I thought, oh, that could be quite fun. And so I went in not with much expectation, but I just thought, do my best and see how it goes. And I won the trial. I was really fit at the time. Not necessarily fit for trails, but I was fit for road and track. And I remember having these horrible cramps at the end. But like I made it through and kind of still had enough of a lead at that time to win the trial and get on the team. And then I went out to Thailand and it was just fantastic. It was like I didn't feel any pressure. It was this just kind of nuts challenge because the race in Thailand, well, one, it was like 32 degrees, humid as anything. I've never been to Asia before, so it was like the whole culture was a bit of a really fun experience to kind of travel somewhere that's so different. But the race, it was like I think it was like 40k with 2,500 meters of climbing, but it was like 1,000. So you'd climb 1,000 meters, then you'd descend 1,000 meters, then you'd climb 1,000 meters again, and then you descended and you had a couple of short climbs to the finish. It was just like this nuts, like big climbs, big descents in a kind of jungle environment. And it was just fun. It was amazing. Like I ran with no pressure, came fifth, had some horrible cramps near the end again. I just I kind of got the bug a bit, and then my plan afterwards was to kind of go to the marathon, and I ran Seville Marathon the February after, and I just felt with the marathon I was just getting back into this same mindset where like I was good. It was going to be so black or white whether it was a success or a failure. And I was still kind of a bit raw from the whole Commonwealth Games. I'd got the time, but I didn't get selected. And I just thought, oh man, I've just had this great experience on the trails. Why am I putting myself back into this environment where, if I'd have run, you'll probably know it, Dan, if you go in with a goal, if your goal is 2:15 and you run 2:16:01, that can feel like a failure.
Yeah.
Whereas 2:15:59 is a success.
The beauty of a track and a road, isn't it? Is that it's great when it's going well, and if it's not going well, you're very exposed, aren't you? It's so quantifiable, and you're always thinking, "Oh, could I have run a bit far? A bit faster? What mistakes did I make?" Whereas in the trail world, in the mountain world, that's out the window. Like your times don't matter at all. It's about the positioning, and there's just more. I guess it's more noise, isn't it? More.
There's way more stuff to deal with than like I say. You can come into a race. The longer you go, you can come into a race really fit, but then there's things like nutrition and race management and all these things start to play much more of a role. And so it's not necessarily the trail captured me, but it refocused me on what I enjoy in the sport, what my motivations are. Because what I love about sport is the fact that, it's this big problem to solve. I am competitive, but I deep down, I just like trying to solve this problem, trying to, trying to be better. And in trail running, I've got this challenge where, I don't really have any kind of preconceptions or like you say, it's not black or white whether I'm successful or fail.
So how you've obviously had a lot of success on the trails, some really notable performances over the last few years. But I guess what are the what the challenges that you've found and the learnings you've found as you've transitioned from racing the flat to longer and like much more technical events like the nutrition, the kit. I imagine you've had some races where it hasn't quite gone to plan.
Yeah, I mean, the big one for me over in the longer stuff has been cramping. I say in most of my longer races I've had some kind of episode of cramping, but a part of it is, you know, so I ran OCC at the UTMB week last year, which is the kind of 50k race at, at UTMB, and it's 55k and 3,500 meters of climb, and there's only so much you can do to condition your legs for it in a year. And so it's trying to you know, trying to build year on year so that hopefully this year my legs are more conditioned than last year. Certainly done more vert, more longer runs, more, my preparation this year has been more. Now, hopefully that translates into better performance. Nutrition as well. I mean, it's going kind of similar ways to cycling, as you put in a lot of food during these races. I'm probably lucky. Currently, I haven't raced long enough to need anything more than gels and drink mix. But I think in OCC last year, I think I had about 12 gels. And like 45-gram gels. So it's like,
Yeah, so how long? What was your finishing time at the OCC?
So it's just under 5.5 hours.
Yeah.
And at the time, it was my longest run by about an hour. There's only so much you can do to prepare yourself without, you can go and run it in training, but you have to kind of weigh up whether going and doing a 4.5 hour run is going to cost you more in recovery than it gives you in training stimulus. And I'm kind of feeling better this year that I've probably got a bit more training under my belt. I can do some slightly longer runs without it being that kind of risk. So like in the run up to OCC last year, the longest run I did in training was 3 hours 20, and this year I've already run over 4 hours 2 or 3 times in training. So I say it's trying to get these little improvements, and like you say, there's all these different things. So trying to understand the pacing a bit better, because I don't know, starting a 5.5 hour race, coming from years of racing 5Ks and 10Ks, you feel so controlled at the start, but then you still something I haven't maybe got perfect in any race, like any long race, of just not going out slightly too fast. It's all these little areas where you just kind of try and just chip away and improve, in this, step by step way. Yeah.
I guess that's a nice way to bring in sort of your current training, and I guess for anyone that's interested, also like go on Kris's Instagram. You do a weekly post with your training, which is really cool to see. It's also really helpful when we're researching this episode. But yeah, like you said, you've done 4.5 hours as a training run, which I don't think many runners are doing, and any sort of road runner would probably not want to go near that, would they? Like 2.5 hours maybe tops.
Oh God, no! I've done 3 hours. I did once 3 hours, but like not in recent memory. Like it was a mistake at the time.
When you get onto the trails, you're moving slower. You're on softer terrain, and I think in 4.5 hours I might have run 45k, 40k maybe. A lot of climb, but way less impact than if you're going to do 4.5 hours on the road or the flat. It's maybe a joke about ultra and trail, but like on the steep climbs you're hiking. Like you are kind of, it's less of a load. So But you need to be conditioned to being out there for that time and getting that amount of vert in, and yeah.
Yeah, but then at the same time, like, a week later, you're then doing a track session,
Yeah.
um, and you're doing, like the week I was looking at earlier had some like tempo reps, then like an uphill treadmill session. There's a really big mix, which, as you say, like there's that stereotypical sort of idea of like ultra runners just doing like, yeah, doing a 4 hour long run and then just sort of lots of very slow running, but actually you're really mixing it up. And I guess I was just, yeah, curious sort of how you decide on like the intensity and how you're going to target sort of sessions to these really long races.
Yeah, so I mean, my kind of, because I've done so much like different races, and my kind of philosophy on training is quite kind of generic. So like, I think you've got kind of volume, intensity, and speed, right? Those are your kind of levers, and whether you're training for a 5K or a 10K, or whether you're training for an ultra marathon, those are the things that are going to influence how fit you are. So like, for me, I kind of threshold stuff works for me. I'm like I'm a bit of a grinder. I've not got huge leg speed, but I can do relatively high volumes of work if I keep the intensity controlled. And so when I'm trying to build fitness, and if you go back to like January, February, I was doing, a bit of double threshold, mix of like, yeah, say flat track or road, and then uphill, mostly on the treadmill. Um, and that would be like me trying to get a good amount of intensity in the week. Um, and then also, even though I'm um, running for, the average pace for these races is not that high, I still see the value of keeping some element of speed. So I think if you can combine the kind of intensity and the speed, so like, if you're doing flat reps, um, like I'll do sometimes like the kind of 400s off 30 or 45 seconds, or minute, and that's where you're still kind of sticking to this threshold kind of intensity. It's a really manageable session. The next day, 2 days after, you're not feeling cooked because you have this short recovery which keeps your intensity in control, but it means you're running, yeah, 3 minute Ks or slightly under, and then so you're getting this kind of, that's way faster than my races are, but it's keeping that stimulus and keeping that ability to turn my legs over. One of the things I didn't do, because I was doing a lot of uphill stuff last year, one of the things that dropped out almost by accident was, when you go to the track, you warm up, you do your drills, and then you do 4 to 6 strides, so 4 to 6 by 100, and that you're running pretty fast, and that dropped out because I was going down to the gym and I was warming up and I was getting on the treadmill and I wasn't doing my drills and strides, and that kind of speed element I've tried to keep in, and it's I say it's in the warm ups often. It's like I'll warm up, drills, strides, and that's the speed part. So like, how I'm training now, if you kind of zoom out, you do this big picture thing, is exactly how I train for a 5K, 10K. It's just changing the balance a little bit. So if I'm doing 5K, 10K, I probably, rather than doing, um, you know, rather than doing these longer, as I'm going towards OCC now, my intense sessions are getting a bit longer. So it's more like when you go into doing some kind of quite similar to marathon training sessions where I'm doing, 10, 12 minute blocks, and it's maybe more around that kind of LT1 marathon pace. But I just keep that. I If I was training for 5K, 10K, my intensity would be more, threshold or slightly above, still trying to keep that element of being able to recover, but just get it closer to being race pace. And then I say everything else is kind of volume to kind of make sure I'm getting, because I think I say that to me is like this huge lever. Like as I went from like 2008 to 2015, I say I got this big improvement in that time. But if you look at my training, it's the clearest thing is that the volume stepped up. So it's just trying to figure out how to do that in a way that you keep the volume progressing on this kind of month-year basis, rather than having like 3 or 4 really big weeks and then crash, which I've done in the past. So I mean, one of the things I do this year is I've most of the weeks of this year I've not run 1 day a week, and I've got on the bike because I can do 3 hours on the bike. It's not specific, but it's kind of padding out the volume. And then also, what I found is actually I'm doing similar volume hours of running anyway. I'm just doing it in 6 days. So I'm kind of, it's been quite a successful thing to just eke out this volume. And if I was training for 5k, 10k, maybe I wouldn't need to do that because, my race is 15 minutes. But this week I've been able, just by using the bike a little bit, to get, my running has stayed somewhere in 11 to 12 hours, which for me is like, 11 to 13 maybe on some big weeks. But for me, that's about the level where if I go above that, I start to feel niggles. But I've been able to overall have a volume of like 16, 17 hours quite consistently. And it's just these little tweaks that, I say, big picture, it's quite similar to what I do or what I would do if I was training for a 10k. But it's just trying to like do these little tweaks that, hopefully help me be slightly more specific to what I'm trying to do. Yeah.
And that's some big hours there, Kris. Are you on for a PB year? How's it looking?
I am on for a PB year. It's funny because like, yeah, they're big hours, but I've started listening to a lot more. I listen to a lot of podcasts and stuff, and read a lot about training, and a lot of trail runners. There's a lot of trail runners come from other sports. So you start to, some trail runners did triathlon or cycling or mountaineering, and so you start to read about these other sports and how they train, and all of a sudden you realize that runners don't train that much in the kind of grand scheme of endurance sport. And so you're looking, and like I sometimes have to check myself because I'll kind of be reading, some trail runners training, and they'll be doing 20 hours of running in a week, and I've got to kind of check myself in my mind to go, well, yeah, but they live in the mountains, and they're, a lot of it's hiking, a lot of it's kind of slower, but also it's, for them, it's much more similar to the fact that they might ski mountaineer in the winter, and they're doing similar hours and similar volume. So it's actually, yeah, it's kind of this different world where you start to, yeah, I say, I can easily look at competitors on the start line and go, well, I train less than you, but I'm training as much as I ever have, and I'm just trying to keep that balance of like, not try and not look at others on the start line, try and just focus on what do I need to be better, and try and like, yeah, have that focus on, like you say, just trying to be a little bit better this year than I was last year, and improve my training a little bit.
No, it's a great message. I think so many people in this age of Strava are distracted by what other people are doing, and like I'm definitely influenced by what other people are doing. I'm going, what? Phil Sessman's running 240k. Oh, right, I better need to up it now.
Yeah.
Whereas you've definitely got to go off of your starting point, and you've demonstrated that in your fantastic progression over your cross country and road and track career. I mean, I'm looking back here, 5k. First 5k we've got on here, 2008, 16:29, and like pretty much better every year, down to which we get down to 5,000, 13:45, mean, it's
in
very
old spikes as well.
old
I'm
spikes.
not.
Yeah,
I'm keeping that because
exactly.
that was 2017, I think, and that was. I think I've still got them in a cupboard somewhere, but they're like paper thin
Yeah,
soles. A
yeah,
pair of old like Nike Victories or something that I don't think I could run 5k on the track in them at the minute. My Achilles would snap.
yeah, yeah. Worth a 13.30, I reckon, in a pair of dragonflies.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, it's I mean, yeah, definitely I'm a big believer in the volume, and I think if I go back through my training logs, it's not the intensity that's changed that much. It's definitely the volume that's increased massively. And actually intensity, if anything, has probably gone down to compared to what I was doing back in, I don't know, yeah, 2012 and that sort of time period.
Especially with this kind of like, threshold is so in vogue now, but I think it's more that message of just like if you control the intensity, you can do so much more. So it's not that threshold is magic; it's just that not hammering yourself is magic. Not trying to go down to the track and rip as fast as you can every time, but actually leaving a bit in reserve.
Yeah.
Um,
And
and I think that
how are you measuring the intensity of these of your sessions, and how are you controlling intensity?
Yeah, I mean, normally heart rate. I've worn a heart rate, like a proper heart rate strap since I was like 15. So I kind of don't understand when people, I know a lot of people like the armband straps, and I've tried them, but I don't find a chest strap that much of an issue. I have had physiological testing, first through orienteering a couple of times, and then more recently with the elite trail team, we've done it. But my threshold heart rate has remained about the same since since I first did any physiological testing. I think rather than sticking to heart rate, it's more finding that feeling, and over the years you calibrate that feeling. Um, you check, you do your check in with heart rate. Um, I've used lactate more recently. I've got muscle oxygen sensor that I've played with more recently, and they all work, but again, it's more calibrating your feelings to double check, and then once you get that feeling, I mean, yeah, I could probably do a session with nothing with a Timex watch now, and just I'd be in the right ballpark. Um, yeah.
Do you do any sort of specific testing now, sort of tailored towards the longer ultras?
So each year with the elite trail team, we've tried to like do some kind of standard physiological testing. So VO2 max and kind of sub max ramp test. One of the nice things with the going to the lab to do it for the ultras is you get your kind of fuel utilization, and you can kind of work out from that kind of. I mean, it's not perfect, but you can work out kind of energy costs and how much of it might be coming from carbs, and that can feed into this whole conversation of how many gels do you need to stuff in your mouth over the course of some of these races. Um, but I think it's kind of this nice just check in of like, you know, the goal is not to improve your VO2 max or improve your thresholds. The goal is to get faster on race day. But it's nice to have this check in and this kind of um, see how things have progressed and see what might be areas of weakness and might be areas of strength. Um, I also semi regularly, maybe kind of every 6 to 8 weeks, I'll do kind of like a self test thing. I quite often do it on the incline actually, um, but just lactate, or I say I've used muscle oxygen as well, just to see where I am compared to where I've been. So I'll do like 6 minute blocks with a minute rest to take some lactates and just progress the pace a little bit and see where do the curves sit compared to where it was last time. Now, it's not as good as a lab test. My numbers are more up and down than they would be on a lab test. But I say I quite like this idea that sometimes you can just do it in training and even if the numbers come out and they're all garbage, well, you still got quite a good training session in. I know it's something that I've obviously heard Dan talk about a lot, doing sessions in the lab and taking lactate as you go, and you get this kind of double bang for your buck. You get your session done and you get a little check in on how your body's responding. So I've done that. Do I think you need to? Probably not. But
for me, it sort of just keeps it interesting. Like, it's a
yeah,
bit of a distraction, right? What's my lactate doing? Okay, right, it's 2, right? I
yeah,
probably knew it was about 2, but it's nice to know that it is, and
yeah,
it's broken up
yeah.
another treadmill session.
And
So
I like.
when you're doing your testing with the elite trail team, are you doing it on an incline or are you doing it flat there?
We've done both, and actually, I mean, one of the interesting things with it, we did both last year, and if you were to plot both, so VO2 against heart rate, on if you do it on uphill, so I think we actually did increasing gradient, so we stuck with the same pace and we increased the gradient, so rather than sticking with the same gradient, increasing the pace. Um, but actually, your kind of VO2 is much higher on an incline than it is on a flat, which is kind of I think it's maybe not a novel finding, but it's kind of interesting to see firsthand that for the same heart rate, the energy cost is quite a lot higher. And the kind of my threshold ended up at about the same place. Maybe my first threshold was a bit lower, but it kind of points to the fact that these are two kind of different skills, and so and it's one of the kind of rationales I do quite a lot of uphill treadmill and uphill running, because you have to dial in this kind of efficiency in that uphill stride as well as your flat stride. Um, so say we've done both. We've also done some testing with like pack on and pack off. And so yeah, so like in these races you have to carry fluid, you have to carry your nutrition. Most have a mandatory kit list, so you can start a race with a bag that's 2.5 to 3 kilos, and so we've done testing with the bag and without, and yeah, your heart rate's higher with the bag, and one of the interesting things, your core temperature is much higher because you're wearing all these extra layers on your upper body, and you can't dissipate the heat quite so well. So I say we've done these kind of little tests, and I say there's I think with all this testing, there's always a risk that you overcomplicate things. But it's this trying to just understand the sport a little bit more and take these little nuggets away in the hope that they might not change the training massively, but they might change one thing you do. So one of the things since joining the team is I've now got a spreadsheet with a weight of all my kit. So like if I get a mandatory kit list, I can go and add up how many grams that mandatory kit is and essentially try and get that number as low as possible without, without skimping and doing silly things and
You've
kind
been
of
cutting up items of clothing or anything like that?
no. And you hear over the years of people doing all sorts. I think there's and I might be misattributing this, but I think Killian once took like a kid's size waterproof jacket because it didn't specify that jacket had to fit you.
Yeah.
So over the years, these kind of kit lists become more prescriptive as people kind of try and take them to the extremes. But it's just understanding that you do the testing, you realize, oh look, my heart rate's 5 beats higher for the same intensity with a 2.5 kilo pack on. My core body temperature is half a degree higher, whatever those numbers are. I need to make sure that I'm minimizing that effect as much as possible. So it kind of drives home that the importance of those bits. And so yeah, it's kind of, I say that might be a small change. Cutting 100 grams off your bag weight isn't going to win you the race, but I say
but it adds up over the course of 5 hours of racing.
well, you hope so. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah,
And
maybe
have you
allows you to. I say
have
maybe
you
allows you to pack another gel.
yeah, yeah. Have you seen any changes in your physiological profile as as your training has obviously changed going from track and road to
Uh,
the
well,
mountains?
the interesting thing is, so I did some physiological testing when I did orienteering. So I've got a test from, and I went back and looked, and I think it's maybe like 2014. Um, and I don't know the numbers of like exactly, but I think my VO2 max was something like 67. It was in the winter. I wasn't particularly in shape. I was probably carrying a few extra kilos than in the summer. Um, but then more recently, it's obviously those numbers have been much better, thresholds as well. But I don't have anything to compare against since I was, from my 10 kpb days.
Right. Yeah.
Um, One of the interesting things I think, and it kind of struck home a little bit with, so last year I did testing with the Elite Trail team, and I think my VO2 max was something like 76, and my thresholds were, you know, pretty decent, and my running economy was okay as well. Um, and this year I went back and I was a kilo heavier when I tested, and my VO2 max was over 80. So I was heavier, but my kind of capacity had gone up, and my thresholds were about the same. My running economy was about the same. So whether that was just a kind of bad test day when I tested last year, but it does kind of drive home because I mean, I'm about 2.5 kilos heavier than when I raced on the track. And there's always, I don't know, distance runners, there's always this little thing in the back of your mind of like, you step on the scales and you're like, oh, that's higher than I thought. But I say those results you kind of look at and go, well, yeah, it doesn't matter. If you're getting fitter, it doesn't matter. Like, you know, you don't want to drive the weight down at the expense of your capacity to kind of do work. So,
People have like weight is obviously a
mm,
factor, but it's a much less of a factor than people
mm,
think it is. Right?
yeah,
The amount you can improve by training is exponentially more than the
yeah.
amount of improvement you can get from dropping a couple of kilos.
And I've said this to both of the people I'm going to say, so I don't feel bad saying it on here. But I did the uphill at the European Mountain Running Champs last year, and I'm not a, I'm not a massive guy, but I'm about 6 foot and 72, 73 kilos. But when you race the uphill in the mountain running, quite a lot of those guys are, 5'6" and, you know, 50 kilos soaking wet. Um, and I was ninth in the uphill, and I was staying in a room with Jacob Adkin, who's a small guy, very light, and he came second. But I was talking to him after because the guy who won was Joe Stewart, another Brit, and he is probably a little bit taller than me. Don't know his weight, but he's a stocky guy, and he absolutely destroyed the field that day. So there's this, even in mountain running where you think, weight matters because you're having to move it up the hill. He was, strides ahead on that day. I think he won by about a minute on a 40 minute race.
Yeah,
And, it's, I think if Jacob had won that day, it's so easy to look at him and go, well, I'm never going to be 5'5" and 60 kilos. But when Joe Stewart wins, you think, oh, yeah, I can do this. It's not, you don't have to be that build. You can be bigger. It's just about, I then have to come in a different way. So
yeah, yeah. No,
yeah,
100%. I'm just thinking now of like Andy Vernon back in the day when
yeah, yeah,
powering through the cross country. He's more like a boxer in some ways, but he was phenomenal on the cross and on the track. Right?
yeah, absolutely.
Um,
Yeah,
yeah, definitely. Like like you said, you want to shave as much weight you can off your rucksack, but your rucksack hasn't got to
yeah,
actually have a metabolic output, does it?
yeah.
Yeah,
And it makes sense that I'm heavier than when I ran on the track because it takes different muscles to run uphill, and
Yeah,
I've got to build those muscles, and I've got to have kind of stronger legs for the downhills. And so I say it's this you know yeah, I think every runner thinks about it though, so it's funny.
yeah. I try and avoid it and just try and make good decisions with nutrition, and the weight is what it
Yeah,
is. I think it's the best.
yeah,
You're much better to be a bit heavier than a bit light, and having
yeah,
actually not adapting and responding to the training you're doing.
yeah. And that is the way the conversation's gone in the last few years for sure. There's a lot more examples of people who are in cycling and in all sports that are putting that message across that you have to fuel what you're doing, and if you fuel it really well, you can get these big gains in performance. Christian Blumenfeld is the example in triathlon. He's a big guy, but he's fantastic endurance athlete.
Yeah, 100%, 100%. So what's next for you, Kris? OCC again?
Yeah, so I've got two big races coming up. I've got OCC at the end of August, and then I've got the World Championships in Canfranc in Spain at the end of September. OCC again is 55k, 3,500 meters, so it's about 5.5 hours. Hopefully shorter than that this year. And then World Champs is I think a little over 40k, maybe 45k, and 3,500 meters as well. And it's quite a lot rougher than OCC, so it'll be probably a 5 to 5.5 hour race as well. So yeah, the challenge for me is I've got to race OCC and then kind of carry that fitness over through to another race a month later.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's how do you find recovery from one of those events versus a marathon? I know you've only done one flat marathon, but I think there's a tendency for trail runners to run quite a lot of trail
Yeah.
events where they are out for 4 or 5 hours over the course of a summer. Whereas I don't think you'd get away with that in a flat marathon.
No, I think it's different. Yeah, I try to schedule my year so that I've got I don't do too many. I say I did one earlier this year in Snowdonia, so Ultra Trail Snowdonia 55k or 50k, and then so that was May, and then my next one would be end of August, with the idea being I can do kind of a good kind of 12-week block to build up. With Worlds being shortly after, it's I say it's too good of an opportunity to not try and do both, but it's a challenge. I think the thing with the trail stuff is you can absolutely cook your legs. You can be struggling to walk downstairs the next days, but I think that goes away a bit quicker than the marathon because it's this pure muscle damage of downhill. But one of the things I find interesting is that the kind of almost metabolic cost is so high because you're racing for longer. So like the marathon, maybe that kind of muscle damage hangs around a bit longer, but like it's that kind of like big effort, big 5 hour day in the hills. You can you can be a week later, 2 weeks later, and go, oh, I'm still a bit like fried from kind of the cost of this. Whereas, I mean, the one marathon I did, yeah, my legs hurt for half a week, but after that, I was back into things pretty quickly. But I say, the more I do stuff around that kind of 50k distance, the more it kind of feels like the recovery gets better as well. So,
great.
Yeah.
Well, good luck for your races. Getting quite late here, so we'll let you head off to bed. I can see Owain's falling asleep here. He's got a 6 a.m. run to do the next day. Yeah, thanks very much, Kris. Really interesting to hear your about your journey and how you've your experience across all the different disciplines. And best of luck for the summer.
No worries. Happy to chat. Yeah, I say I can talk about running. It's amazing to be on, and fantastic to
Great to chat to you.